Today on Alex and Autos, we're taking a look at the all-new for 2015 Honda Fit hatchback. Now this is a subcompact hatchback, which means it competes with the likes of the Nissan Versa Note, the Chevy Sonic, the Hyundai Accent, as well as the Ford Fiesta. Now there are a number of other entries in the subcompact segment in America, something like a new Toyota Yaris, etc. But I'm really only going to be focusing on the 4 top sellers and this Honda Fit in this video. In case you're wondering, Toyota does plan on launching a brand new Yaris very soon, so stay tuned for a video on that. You can go ahead and click the subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen and be updated on that video as soon as I can get my hands on one. 2015 brings all new sheet metal for the Fit. This wasn't a refresh, it was a complete redesign. And in this redesign, Honda decided to better integrate the Fit with the rest of the Honda lineup. This means we get this new front end that reminds me an awful lot of the new 2015 CR-V as well as the Honda Civic. We get these slimmer headlamps that are not bug-eyed like they were in the last generation Fit. EX and EXL trims dress things up just a little bit more with standard fog lamps and this chrome strip that runs right here under the Honda logo. Overall, I think this design is a little bit more grown-up than the last generation Fit, although I did find the old Fit very attractive. Some additional differentiators on the outside are EX and EXL models get the Honda Lane Watch system, which is this camera right here that helps watch your blind spot, and EXL models get this LED turn signal repeater right here on the side view mirror. From the side profile, you can tell that cargo capacity and cargo practicality are high on the list for this vehicle. We have this very squared off cargo area back here and a very short hood up front, helping the practicality aspect of the overall size. In terms of overall size, this slots in right in the middle of the pack at 160 inches long. This is a little bit bigger than a Sonic or the Fiesta, but it is 4 inches shorter than a Versa. If you're wondering about the even smaller entries in this segment, something like a Chevy Spark, this is 16 inches longer than that Chevy. The short hood really helps the overall practicality of this vehicle. As I said, it's very middle of the pack in terms of exterior dimensions, but in terms of interior cargo capacity, it's at the top of the list. All models of the Fit have standard LED tail lamps. This portion up here is a reflector, and the tail lamps are just this C section of the rear lamp module. I think overall this is a very attractive design. It gives the Fit sort of a broader shoulder or broader hipped look, something that you'd normally find on a Volvo C30 or Volvo XC60. I think it's a very attractive design for this car. We have a chrome strip right across here across the hatchback. Most models of the Fit will have a standard backup camera, except for that base model, of course. We have a hidden exhaust tip right down here. And overall, I'll give this 8 out of 10 points when it comes to the exterior design. Personally, I think the Ford Fiesta is the most attractive entry in this segment, and I think that the new Rio is also very attractive. Go ahead and comment in that comment section down below and let me know what you think about the Honda Fit's looks and how it stacks up with the competition. Under the hood, we have a brand new 1.5-liter 4-cylinder EarthDreams engine. This engine features direct injection as well as variable valve timing. It produces 130 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. That's relatively similar in terms of power output to the Sonic, the Accent, as well as the Fiesta. One thing to keep in mind is that the Fit is relatively light in this category, so even though it produces a little bit less power than the Sonic or the Accent, it is a little bit lighter than both of those options. This engine is mated by default to a 6-speed manual transmission, but you can also get a continuously variable transmission or CVT in the base or the EX model, and the CVT is standard in the EXL. Unlike the Yaris and the Versa, Honda decided not to saddle the base model with an older transmission. So the base models of the Yaris and the base models of the Versa with the automatic use a old 4-speed automatic, not the newer CVTs that you'll find in the upper level trims. If you get the 6-speed manual transmission, fuel economy comes in at 29 miles per gallon city, 37 highway, and 32 combined. If you get the CVT in the LX model, then you get 33 miles per gallon city, 41 highway, and 36 combined. If you get the EX and the EXL, then the fuel economy actually drops slightly to 32 miles per gallon city, 38 highway, and 35 combined. The reason for the higher fuel economy in the LX model is that the LX is a little bit lighter. They remove some of the sound insulation in the vehicle, so it will be a little bit louder out on the road, but you will get better fuel economy. And there are also some additional aero improvements in the vehicle to make the car more aerodynamic, like an aerodynamic body panel under the vehicle. And that helps improve your highway mileage. Front seat comfort comes in at 5 out of 10 points for me. Some of that has to do with the fact that this seat does not have adjustable lumbar support, even in the EXL model that we're in right now. It is still a 6-way manual adjustable seat. We can adjust the height with this lever, the recline with this lever right here, and then we slide forward and backward. And part of that score has to do with the fact that I'm 6 feet tall, this seat is all the way back in its tracks, and I think that for my ideal driving position, I would like the seat to be a little bit further back. That means that if you're a taller driver, this seat may be too close to the dashboard for you. Although we do have a standard tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion, you should know that these seats are a little bit unusual for Honda. Honda typically tends to have a rather aggressive lumbar support in most of their seats, even those that are not adjustable, and these seats don't have that particular feature. So if you prefer a little bit less lumbar support, you're probably going to find these seats a little bit more comfortable. In addition, the floor stamping is a little bit unusual in the fit. We'll take a look at that as we go around the interior in just a little bit, but you should know that this footwell is a little bit smaller than you'll find in some of the competition. The previous generation of the Fit had a fairly compact back seat, but as I said earlier, this generation of the Fit got a decent amount longer in terms of wheelbase, and that allowed Honda to push this rear seat further towards the rear. And we do get a slightly smaller cargo area that we'll take a look at in a bit, but the biggest dividend from that stretch is right here in rear seat legroom. I have about 3 or 4 inches of legroom right here sitting behind myself, and of course if I move on over to the right side of the vehicle, that's not going to change because this front seat is already all the way back in its tracks. That meant that a 6'5" passenger I had in the car felt just a little bit cramped up front. Now the flip side to that, of course, is that a 6'5" passenger right here in the rear had no problem sitting behind a 6-foot passenger that was also comfortable up front. Just means that the taller people may have to shift towards the rear in the Fit. I do have a decent amount of headroom right back here. I have about 1 inch of headroom, and that's including the fact that our particular model is equipped with the optional sunroof. Moving to the middle seat, you'll notice that we have a little bit more of a hump right here in the middle than some of the competition, and that's because these outboard seats are distinctly bucket shaped. Because of the tall roof line of the Fit, I still have about 1 inch of headroom left right here in the middle, although I do have a pronounced hump right here for the exhaust system that runs towards the rear. The Fit has long excelled at cargo practicality, and that's certainly true for this generation of the Fit. In addition to split 60/40 folding rear seat backs that fold almost completely flat with a cargo area in the back, we have something called a magic seat, and that just really means that the seat bottom cushion also flips up instead of just the back folding down. So we can actually flip this up, we can insert large cargo right here in the middle and have that positioned right behind the front seats. Overall, the Fit scores 7 out of 10 points when it comes to rear seat comfort. I do rank this above most of the subcompact entries except for that Nissan Versa. The Versa does have an incredible amount of rear legroom behind the front seats, in addition to a decent amount of front legroom as well. When it comes to cargo capacity, the Fit has actually shrunk slightly in this generation. We have about 17 cubic feet of storage space behind the rear seat backs versus 23 in the last generation. That puts this slightly behind the Nissan Versa Note, which comes in right around 18.8. Now the reason for that is because Honda decided to shift the rear seat backs rearward in order to give the rear passengers more room and more legroom in the rear. Now I think that's a decent trade-off, and if you do fold those 60/40 folding seat backs down, it expands to 53 cubic feet of storage space, which is class leading. Now if you're thinking that sounds like an awful lot of cargo carrying capacity, you'd be right, and here is how Honda did it. As you can see right here, this suitcase is quite close to the ground. The ground's just right about there, and that's because this rear seat is relatively thin and it also folds very, very low into the vehicle. That really helps expand the cargo capacity to just about twice what you can fit in a Ford Fiesta. Taking a closer look at this cargo area, you can see that we can easily fit large roller bags like this in an upright position and still close the hatch. This cargo area is not quite as convenient as the Versa Note. Nissan really puts a lot of effort into cargo dividers and other things going on in that Versa Note's cargo area. We do have a little bit of extra storage right here under the load floor, and then right below that you will find a donut spare tire. Now one thing to note is that this cargo load floor is relatively flimsy. It does bend a little bit, so if I had larger and heavier bags in here, that may be a little bit of a concern. You can easily fold these rear seat backs from the back right here, and that expands the cargo area out to that 53 cubic feet I mentioned earlier. One thing to note is that a standard tonneau cover is not found in the Fit like you do find it in certain of the competition. Another thing to note is that you don't find a standard tonneau cover right back here like you do find in some of the competition. When it comes to my exclusive trunk comfort index, I give this vehicle 9 out of 10 points. It slots in just below the Nissan Versa Note. That Nissan has a lot of handy organizational features going on in its cargo area, both standard and optional. We don't get that in the Honda Fit. I do wish this vehicle did have a tonneau cover. It might tie, even though this area is a little bit smaller than that Nissan. One really nice touch is that we get a solid handle right here on the hatchback to help you close this hatchback lid. The Versa gives you sort of a little nylon strap in the back, and a lot of hatchbacks don't give you anything at all, leaving you to paw at the painted area right here on the hatchback and then scrape it up over time. Let's take a quick spin around the interior. We're starting out right here in the rear so you can see the rearward visibility of the Fit. It is relatively good. That small rear window does help a little bit. The center seat belt comes out of the ceiling, as you can see right there in that rear bench seat, and the rear headrests are a 4-way adjustable variety. They flip up and down and in and out as well. If we move right up front, we have height adjustable seat belts and a standard 2-way adjustable headrest for both the driver and the front passenger. Since we are in the EXL model, we get these leather front seats that are heated, although as I said earlier, they're still only 6-way adjustable manual seats. Like most entries in the subcompact category, the Fit has a lot of hard plastics going on the interior. The front and rear doors are constructed essentially the same way, with the same sort of design right here, with this attractive metallic swoosh and this black plastic insert right here. Hard plastic upper, hard plastic lower, hard plastic armrest as well, although this particular insert right here is a soft touch plastic. I really wish that Honda had traded this soft touch plastic right here for a soft touch armrest. I think that would have been a lot more comfortable. Now, if we move on over to the passenger side of the dashboard, we do find soft touch plastics right here for the airbag cover and the surround right down here above the glove box and around the air vent on that side, with faux stitching injection molded right there into the dash componentry. Now, we still have a hard touch upper and a hard touch lower dashboard, and there are more hard touch plastics on the driver's side than there are here on the passenger side. Below the metal effect trim, we have a large glove box. It's not quite as large as you find in the Nissan Versa, but it is still very deep and very convenient. Moving to the left, we find our two large air vents right here, hazard light button. Our vehicle has the optional keyless entry and keyless go, so that's the start-stop button right there. Single zone manual climate control going on here with standard air conditioning. Now, depending on which version of the Fit you get, there are two different infotainment options. Things start out with a base 5-inch touchscreen LCD. I wasn't able to find any of those on a dealer lot, so I don't have any video of that, but I will post a picture right here so you can see what that looks like. It does have more physical buttons on either side of the screen, although it is still a touchscreen as I understand it. I'll let you know more if I do happen to get my hands on that in a future video. This particular screen is standard on a decent number of the Fits, and for the vast majority, this is the screen that you will see on dealer lots with the Honda Fit. It is a 7-inch touchscreen LCD system with contextual buttons right over here on this side. So if we turn on the system, you'll notice this volume icon is now lit. If we click on the audio button, you'll see that the menu button is now lit, and we now have a home button so we can go back to the home screen. This system does have standard navigation if you're in the EXL with navigation, and on all other models we do get standard Link Connect, which is a very handy feature, which allows you to basically do navigation as well as other services delivered by your smartphone that is plugged in via an HDMI cable. At the moment, it only supports an iPhone. Right here I have the cable that's required. It's a Lightning to HDMI output connector. And essentially what this does is your iPhone is generating the video that is then displayed on the screen for navigation as well as other services. Making the Honda Link Connect system work, we have an HDMI input right here below the single zone climate control, a second USB input, there's also one in the center console, and a 12-volt power outlet right there as well. We have a storage cubby right there, and then two large cup holders right here behind the shifter. These were easily able to accommodate the largest takeout soda I was able to throw at it. The Fit is a relatively compact car, so you do have to keep in mind that the shifter is a little bit in the way if you do have something that's really tall, as well as this portion of the dashboard. Behind those controls, we have a traditional shifter, and then if we move on back from that, we have an additional storage cubby right here. This is what the keyless entry and keyless go remote looks like in the 2015 Fit. Handbrake, and 2-position heated front seats for both the driver and the front passenger. A corner that's frequently cut and less expensive as well as subcompact vehicles is a center console, and we have one right here in the Fit with a power outlet, a USB input, and it is relatively large and deep. One thing to note is that it is somewhat low, so if you're taller, then you may find that your elbow is just a little bit too high to use that armrest effectively. Moving over to the driver's side, we have a 2-dial instrument cluster with a large speedometer right here front and center, a tachometer over here on the left. Then we have some digital readouts over here on the right with a static display right up here for your fuel economy that gives you the instant fuel economy. We have our fuel gauge right down there, temperature, and then we have our trip computer right there in the middle. Change options on the trip computer by pressing this dimmer button, so you can cycle through the various trip computer screens, trip A, trip B, range there, etc. As you can see, we've been averaging a very respectable 37.5 miles per gallon over 405 mixed miles of driving. All Fit models have a standard 3-spoke steering wheel that is very attractive. Our particular model has the optional leather-wrapped steering wheel in it. Now, all Fit models do have steering wheel buttons, and if you get the CVT in any of the vehicles except for the base model, we do get shift pedals right here on the back of the steering wheel as well, down on this side, up on this side. Now again, as I said earlier, this is a CVT or continuously variable transmission equipped vehicle, and that does mean that you don't have dedicated gears, but the transmission will try and imitate them if you do use these paddle shifters. As I have said before, I must caution that I find paddle shifters on a vehicle equipped with a CVT just about as useful as paddle shifters on a French Poodle, but we'll talk about that more later. To the left of the steering wheel, we have our lane watch button right over here on the turn signal stalk. Lane watch does turn on automatically if you turn left, but you can turn it on manually by pressing that button right there. Econ button right down here, traction control off button, and this right here is probably the first dashboard cup holder that I have ever found useful in my life. Part of that's because it's quite deep. You can actually see if I stick this large soda right in there, it fits right down there, probably a third of the way up the cup, possibly even almost half. That means that Cups don't seem to want to tip over or spill in this cup holder, although I could see that perhaps you might squish it somehow if you were really grabbing onto the dashboard for some reason. I never found myself banging into this cup holder when getting in and out of the vehicle because it's set into the dashboard a decent amount. I really did find that quite handy. While I'm talking about cup holders, one thing to note is that the rear seats do not have cup holders, although there are bottle holders in the rear doors. From this angle, you can see what I mean about the floor pan. The seat is all the way back, and as you can see right here, we have this sort of crescent-shaped structure right here. This is most likely part of the crash structure of the Fit, and again, it is duplicated over here on the driver's side. Now, because you're likely to hit this with your shoe, Honda does give you sort of a plastic cover right here on part of this area to help reduce wear on the carpet. The outgoing Fit was easily the best handling and the best feeling subcompact, non-performance oriented hatchback in America. And I know that sounds like I'm dicing things awfully thin, but all that really means is that it was better than everything else out there except for the Ford Fiesta RS hatchback. Now, while I think that's also true for this 2015 model, the 2014 model was definitely nicer to drive out on the road. It had a more engaging feel. We didn't have electric power steering in that model, so the steering felt more engaging. It felt a little smaller out on the road, and it definitely felt more connected to the driver. Not that the 2015 model is bad, but the 2014 model year just felt that little bit sharper. Of course, all these changes that Honda did to this model were to make the vehicle more practical, more usable in real-world driving, and definitely improve the fuel economy. And fuel economy is certainly up over that 2014 model year vehicle. I've been averaging between 37 and 38 miles per gallon over 450 miles of very mixed driving, which is an awful lot better than the EPA says you'll get. That CVT coupled with this brand new 1.5 liter engine helps get this vehicle 10 out of 10 points in my fuel economy scale. Now, I know this is just about the same as the Nissan Versa, but I actually give this a slightly higher score than the Versa because we have a more reasonable amount of power for approximately the same fuel economy or slightly better depending on your driving situation. The Versa does get excellent fuel economy, but it's about 20 horsepower less than this, and it weighs about the same, so the performance is definitely lower than this Fit. And I haven't really been babying this vehicle during my daily drive. As you can see, I'm driving on this kind of mountain road every day on my way home, and I'm still getting very high fuel economy numbers out of this vehicle. Before we move on to the other sections of this review, let's talk about the transmission. This CVT is easily the best continuously variable transmission that I have ever driven, and that includes the Audi, the Subaru, the Nissan, and the Infiniti systems. What's different about Honda's CVT is that somehow or another they have managed to make this transition from a low ratio to a high ratio or from a high ratio to a low ratio much more rapidly than the competition. And that includes the CVT that you find in the Versa, which also includes a 2-speed gearbox that helps that transmission shift faster than the other Nissan units. What that means to you is if we're driving out here on this road like this and I floor the car, we immediately get what feels like a downshift in this transmission. That gives you a definite different feel to the rest of the CVTs out there on the market. Definitely feels a little bit sportier. Now, if we put this transmission in sport mode as we go around this corner, the transmission will hold a higher RPM for the engine, and as we get out of the corner like this and we floor it, it goes to an even higher RPM more rapidly than you would in drive. Part of why I like the CVT is because I live in a mountainous terrain, as you can see here, and I commute on it every day. And the 4-speed automatic transmission that you find in the Nissan Versa, especially in the base model, really feels out of place in that vehicle. When you're hill climbing, the transmission never has the right gear ratio for you. However, when you transition into the Versa with the CVT, it feels like a completely different vehicle. And fortunately, Honda decided not to do that in the Fit. This vehicle has the CVT even in the base model if you get the automatic transmission in that base version. When it comes to acceleration, I give this 8 out of 10 points. We ran from 0 to 60 in 8.8 seconds, which makes this faster than the more powerful options in this segment, like the Sonic or the Accent. This is also faster than the Ford Fiesta, which uses a dual clutch transmission, and again, it's faster than the Nissan Versa, even though that Versa is fairly light. Braking for the Fit comes in at 8 out of 10. Stopping distances are fairly average for this segment, and fade resistance is also fairly good. Cabin noise comes in at 6 out of 10 points. In the base model of the Fit, cabin noise is not terribly well controlled. We do get a decent amount more road and wind noise than you find in some of the competition. Of course, most of the competitors in this segment do remove sound deadening material to help their low-end base price. So that's not unusual. It's not something that Honda's done that other manufacturers don't do. It is a pretty common trick. However, it does take a toll in terms of road noise and wind noise in that base LX model. If you step up to the EX and the EXL model, then road noise and wind noise is fairly comparable to the rest of the competition, but engine noise is still a little bit louder than I would like. If you're looking for the quietest entries in this segment, then you will find quieter rides in the Chevy as well as the Ford. With the handling prowess in this vehicle, it should be no surprise that ride comes in at 7 out of 10 points. Ride and handling are usually two ends of the same stick, so as you increase one, it takes a toll on the other. That's definitely true for the Fit. This vehicle also has a somewhat short wheelbase when you compare it to something like a compact car like a Honda Civic, so it's going to ride a little bit rougher out on the road than its bigger brother. If you're after the best driving subcompact, then the 2015 Fit is definitely the vehicle for you. Even though we didn't score quite as high as I would like in the ride section or the cabin noise section, the way this vehicle accelerates, the way it handles, and the excellent fuel economy I've been getting out of this car over a week of mixed driving really puts this at the top of the list for me. When you compare it to the rest of the competition, the Fiesta and the Sonic have excellent handling dynamics, but their fuel economy really drops below what the manufacturer says it's going to get out on the road. The Nissan Versa excels at fuel economy, but it's really not quite as good in the corners. On the Hyundai and the Kia front, they're very well balanced, but their balance comes out lower on average than this vehicle does for me. As is typical with Honda, the Fit is really only available in 4 different forms. We have the base LX model, the EX, the EXL, and the EXL with navigation. Now the LX and the EX you can choose between CVT or manual transmission, and the EXL you can only get the CVT. Pricing for 2015 starts at $15,525 for the 6-speed manual version of the Fit. That's the base model. Things jump up to $16,325 if you do want that base model with the CVT. A fully loaded EXL with navigation like we're taking a look at right here will set you back $20,800. And I think that overall my favorite configuration for the Fit is the EX with the CVT at $18,225. The EX with the CVT is very nicely loaded. We don't get the leather seats on the inside, we don't get the leather wrapped steering wheel, but we do still get that 7-inch touchscreen LCD with the app integration. You also get the lane watch system integrated into this rearview mirror, keyless go, floor mats, the 6-speaker audio system, fog lights, alloy wheels, a backup cam, as well as the moonroof. Let's compare that to the competition. The Fiesta runs from $14,100 to $21,400. That's excluding the Fiesta ST. The Chevy Sonic, $14,470 to $22,505, again excluding the performance version of the Sonic. We have the Hyundai Accent, $14,895 to $18,295. And then we have the Versa Note, $13,990 to $18,490. Obviously the Versa is the cheapest entry in the segment, but it does have the cheapest interior, and you also don't get a CVT in that base model. If you want the CVT for the improved fuel economy in the Versa Note, you do have to step up the ladder a bit. I find the Fiesta the most attractive entry in this segment, but the dual clutch transmission, especially in the upper level trims, may put off some people. It also isn't as large on the inside as the Fit. It actually has about half the cargo capacity as this hatchback right here, which is a decent amount. The Versa is obviously the low cost and value entry in this segment. We have just about the same kind of interior room going on, very similar fuel economy numbers, very similar interior comfort scores. We also have just about the same amount of cargo space right back here behind the rear seats. It is less expensive feeling on the inside, however. It's also not quite as attractive as the Fit, I think, in general, and Nissan does have a slightly lower reliability reputation than Honda does. Feature for feature, this compares very well with every entry in this segment, including something like a Kia Rio or a Hyundai Accent, which are at the lower end of the cost scale. Personally, I think if I were shopping in this subcompact segment, I would probably buy the Nissan Versa, but the Fit would be a very, very close second, almost tied with the Ford Fiesta. The reason for that for me is because I'm just pretty cheap, and the Versa is definitely cheaper than the Fit. I don't think the Versa is quite as nice as the Fit though. The Fit definitely has a nicer interior, it's definitely better looking, better feeling, has a much nicer steering wheel, etc. on the inside. I also like the way the CVT drives much better than the Nissan Versa. However, I did not find the driver's seat in this car as comfortable as the one in the Fiesta or the Versa Note. That is an important consideration, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of time in your car. If you're a taller driver, I'm 6 feet tall. If you're taller than me, you may want to spend a decent amount of time in the Fit to make sure it's comfortable for you. I suspect you may want to find a slightly bigger option. There's no question that the biggest selling point for the Fit is, of course, its extraordinarily large interior. I also found those rear seats very handy, the ones that do fold up from the bottom as well as fold flat from the back. So if you are looking for the most practical or the largest capacity subcompact hatchback, this is definitely it. In comparison, again, this has about twice the interior volume behind the front seats as you'll find in a Ford Fiesta. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that that rear seat back folds right down to about here in the car, giving you an awful lot of interior volume. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2015 Honda Fit. Go ahead and comment in the comment section down below, subscribe to this channel, like this video, tell me what you liked and didn't like about the video or about the 2015 Honda Fit in general. You can also let me know down there what vehicles you'd like to see reviewed on Alex on Autos. As always, you can find out what vehicle I'm driving this week over at facebook.com/AlexOnAutos. You can send your questions to alex@alexonautos.com, and you can now find me over at Twitter as Alex on Autos. I have no idea how to tweet, so someone may need to help me with that, but you'll find me over there on Twitter.